It was early in the morning, and I was lying in bed feeling cozy and content. My husband Brawley had left to go shopping, leaving me with some much-needed alone time to relax and unwind. I stretched out in bed, enjoying the feeling of the soft sheets and warm blankets against my skin. The morning sun was just starting to stream in through the window, casting a warm and gentle light in the room. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scents of our bedroom. The room smelled like fresh laundry and a hint of my favourite perfume, creating a comforting and relaxing atmosphere. As I lay there, I listened to the quiet sounds of the house, the occasional muffled sound of a car passing by outside or a bird chirping in the distance. It was peaceful and serene, and I let my mind wander aimlessly as I basked in the solitude and tranquility of the moment. I turned on the bedroom TV, the screen flickering to life as I navigated to a video of the newest realistic tactical shooter game called Body Cam. The game looked incredibly immersive and exciting, with stunning graphics and realistic gameplay that made it feel like I was in the middle of a real-life SWAT operation. As I watched the video of the game, a smile crept across my face as I remembered that it was my sister Fexa's favourite game. She had always been obsessed with realistic tactical shooters, and this one seemed like it would be right up her alley. I also remembered playing the game with Fexa last week, and how much fun we had together. We had spent hours playing, strategizing, and working together to complete the challenging missions. I smiled at the memory, feeling grateful for the time we had spent together and the bond that gaming had created between us. As I continued to watch the game, I reflected on how realistic tactical shooter games played from a body cam point of view added a whole new level of immersion and excitement to the gaming experience. It felt like I was really there, in the middle of the action, experiencing the chaos and intensity of the situation firsthand. Just as I was getting absorbed in the game, my phone rang, drawing my attention away from the screen. I picked up the phone, seeing that it was my sister Fexa calling. I hit the answer button, bringing the phone to my ear as I said, "Hey Fexa, what's up?" My eyes widened in surprise as Fexa told me that she had won an Airsoft tournament and taken home a trophy and $10,000. I couldn't believe it. My sister had always been a skilled player, but winning such a prestigious tournament and such a large prize was truly impressive. I let out a low whistle, impressed by her accomplishment. "That's amazing, Fexa," I exclaimed. "I always knew you were good, but winning a tournament and getting all that money is incredible. You must have worked really hard to achieve that." Fexa chuckled on the other end of the line, sounding happy and proud of herself. "Thanks, Krampus," she replied. "It was a tough competition, but I was really focused and played my best. The prize money is just icing on the cake." I smiled, imagining the excitement and adrenaline that must have coursing through Fexa's veins as she won the tournament. "I can only imagine how amazing it must have felt to win," I said. "And the money is definitely a nice bonus. Are you going to celebrate somehow?" After the call with Fexa ended, I found myself thinking about Airsoft. It was a game that she was clearly passionate about and excelled at. It also seemed like a great way for her to release stress and channel her competitive spirit in a fun and safe way. I had never played Airsoft myself, but I knew that Fexa had always enjoyed it. She had often talked about the thrill of the game, the adrenaline rush of sneaking around and strategizing with other players, and the sense of satisfaction of taking down opponents with careful aim and quick reflexes. As I continued to think about Airsoft, I felt a stirring of curiosity and excitement within me. I had always had a competitive spirit of my own, and I could see how Airsoft could be a way for me to channel that and have some fun. But before thinking about trying it, I would first have to consider if I had the necessary skills and equipment for it. Airsoft required a certain level of physical fitness and coordination, as well as a decent knowledge of tactics and strategy. I was in good physical condition and used to working out, but I hadn't had any formal training in strategy or combat. I made a mental note to look into some basic self-defense classes and other resources to help me get started in Airsoft and start off on the right foot. I got on my phone and began to watch some videos of Airsoft games. I watched players moving around, taking cover, and engaging in exciting and high-stakes battles. The videos were exciting and fast-paced, and I found myself watching intently, trying to pick up on the techniques and strategies being used by the players on screen. As I watched the videos, I noticed that some players took things a step further by dressing up as characters from video games like Call of Duty, or even donning military uniforms from the game. There were also videos of players who went the extra mile by dressing as World War II soldiers, complete with replica weapons from that era. The attention to detail in their costumes was impressive, and it added an extra layer of realism and excitement to the game. As I continued to watch the videos, I came across some that were filmed using body cams and helmet cams. These videos gave a first-person perspective and intense sense of realism to the airsoft battles, as the camera followed the players around wherever they went and captured every moment of the action. It was a rush to watch these videos, feeling like I was actually there on the battlefield, experiencing the adrenaline and intensity of the game. As I continued to watch the videos, a sense of relief washed over me as I realised that the guns used in airsoft shot BBs, not actual bullets. This meant that the game was safe and players would not be put at risk of serious injury or harm. This realisation made me feel much better about the idea of trying out airsoft for myself, knowing that I would be safe and protected while participating in the game. It was also interesting to think about the technology behind these airsoft guns, which were able to fire projectiles in a safe and controlled way, while still providing an intense and realistic experience for players. As I continued to watch the videos, I couldn't help but wonder what other players would think when they saw me on the airsoft field. Although I had never played before, I decided that if I were to start, I would fully commit to it. I would dress in tactical gear and equip myself with the best equipment I could find. The thought of other players being intimidated by my presence amused me. I could imagine the surprise on their faces when they saw me, looking like a seasoned pro despite being a first-time player. As I continued to visualise myself on the airsoft field, I couldn't help but imagine the looks of shock and surprise on other players' faces as they took in my appearance. My horns and demonic appearance would surely add an extra layer of intimidation, making me stand out amongst the other players. I chuckled at the thought, imagining the looks of fear and surprise on their faces as they took in my devilish form. As I continued to imagine the scene, a sly smile crept across my face. I could already picture the look of unease and trepidation on the other players' faces as they realised they were about to face off against a devilish-looking adversary. I felt a sense of excitement and power at the thought, my confidence growing as I imagined myself holding my own on the field and taking down opponents with expert aim and strategic moves. I couldn't help but rub my hands together with an evil grin on my face as I imagined the scene again. This time, I could practically hear the sound of my enemies quailing in fear as they faced off against me, a horned and demonic opponent with deadly aim and a thirst for victory. As I continued to revel in my evil thoughts, a sinister laugh burst forth from my lips. It was a deep, guttural sound that seemed to echo through the room, sending shivers down my spine. I suddenly felt more powerful and invincible than ever before, as if nothing could stand in my way on the airsoft battlefield. My mind was racing with thoughts of victory and domination, fueled by the image of myself as a fearsome and dominant player on the field. I couldn't wait to get out there and start playing, to prove to everyone that I was a force to be reckoned with. I knew that with my determination and my demonic appearance, I would be unstoppable. Feeling pumped up and empowered, I decided to take the plunge and sign up for an airsoft game online. I opened up my laptop and navigated to the website of a local outdoor airsoft field, my heart racing with excitement as I prepared to submit my registration. I filled out the necessary information and paid the registration fee, then sat back in my chair, a sense of anticipation coursing through me as I waited for the confirmation email. Finally, the email arrived in my inbox, confirming that I was signed up and good to go for the upcoming game. I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nerves as I read over the details of the game, suddenly realising that I would soon be facing off against other players on the battlefield. With my registration confirmed, I now had to start preparing for the game. The first thing on my list was to get some tactical gear. I quickly got dressed and headed to the nearest sporting goods store to find the equipment I needed. I had a list of items in mind, including a tactical vest, tactical pants, combat boots, and a helmet. As I arrived at the store, I made a beeline for the tactical gear section, looking over the different pieces of equipment on offer. I tried on various vests and pants, making sure they fit me properly and provided the necessary protection and mobility I would need on the field. I also tried on several pairs of boots, ultimately settling on a pair that were both comfortable and durable. As I continued to look around, I came across an outfit that immediately caught my eye. It looked just like the one worn by my favourite Call of Duty character Mara, featuring a tactical sports bra and a pair of US green military pants. Although the outfit showed off quite a bit of skin, it looked comfortable and practical for the game. Plus, I had to admit it was a pretty cool outfit, and I was already imaging how I would look wearing it on the Airsoft field. As I held the outfit up in front of me, I couldn't help but think about how sexy I would look wearing it. The sports bra showed off my toned abs and midriff, and the tight pants hugged my legs and butt, accentuating my curves. I felt a rush of confidence as I imagined myself on the field wearing this outfit, knowing that all eyes would be on me as I kicked ass and took names. As I continued to consider the outfit, I also realised that the more skin showing would actually be a smart choice in terms of comfort and temperature. Airsoft games could get pretty intense and sweaty, and wearing less clothing would help me stay cool and dry as I moved around the field. Although the outfit would definitely show off my physique, I knew that it would also give me a bit of an advantage over other players who were wearing heavier and more restrictive gear. With the practical benefits in mind, I decided that the outfit was the perfect choice for the game. I took it to the changing room and tried it on, making sure it fit well and felt comfortable. I looked in the mirror and smiled, feeling confident and empowered in the sexy and practical outfit. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement and anticipation. I was picturing myself out on the field, moving around and strategizing with ease, making the other players question my skills and toughness. I knew that on the battlefield, I would be a force to be reckoned with in my tactical outfit. After admiring myself in the outfit, I took it off and headed to the checkout counter to pay for it. As I stood in line, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and satisfaction knowing that I had found the perfect tactical gear to give me an edge on the field. As I placed the outfit and other items on the checkout counter, the cashier rang them up and I handed over my payment. I walked out of the store with my new gear, feeling ready to take on anyone and anything on the airsoft field. As I walked out of the store, I started to imagine myself on the field once more. I could picture myself moving around with ease, staying cool and dry in my tactical outfit, and catching all the other players off guard with my skills and confidence. With my new tactical gear in hand, I headed over to the local outdoor airsoft arena where the game would take place. As I walked through the doors, I could feel the adrenaline start to pump as I saw other players gearing up and preparing for the game. I could feel the excitement and tension in the air as I went to the registration desk to check in. I signed a few releases and waivers, and then was directed to the field to get ready and listen to the safety briefing. As I stepped out onto the field, I looked around at the other players, sizing up the competition and feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. I had done my research and felt pretty confident in my abilities, but I knew that anything could happen out here in the heat of the moment. As I walked over to the starting area, I couldn't help but notice a few eyes on me. Some of the other players were clearly checking me out, taking in my attractive appearance in my tactical sports bra and tight military pants. As I took in the looks from the other players, I could see a sense of intimidation in their eyes. They were clearly thrown off by my appearance, not expecting someone who looked like me to be playing Airsoft. I couldn't help but smile as I realised that I had already achieved my goal of intimidating my opponents, and the game hadn't even started yet. I could tell that some of the other players were already feeling insecure and questioning my strength and skill based solely on my appearance. This only added to my confidence and determination, as I knew that I would be able to use their underestimation against them on the field. I knew that I had the upper hand in terms of strategy and skills, and the fact that they were already intimidated by me only made me more determined to prove my worth on the battlefield. I was excited to show them that I was not just a nice face, but a force to be reckoned with. As I lined up to choose my weapons, I surveyed the options in front of me. I wanted something that was reliable, practical and deadly, so I decided to go with a Modern Warfare MP5 light machine gun and a tactical rifle, both of which I knew would be perfect for the fast-paced and intense game of Airsoft. Once I had my weapons, I began to attach various accessories and attachments, making sure they were securely fastened and ready for action. I added a sight attachment to my rifle for better accuracy, a tactical laser to my rifle and LMG for better visibility and precision, and a silencer to my rifle for stealth and reduced sound when firing. I also added an extended magazine to each weapon, allowing me to fire more bullets without the need to constantly reload. I wanted to be well equipped and prepared for whatever situation might arise on the battlefield. With my weapons fully equipped and ready to go, I made my way over to the group of players who were gathered around the instructor for the safety briefing. I could feel my heart racing with excitement as I knew that the game was about to begin and I was about to prove my worth on the field. As I listened to the instructor, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that the arena for the game would be reminiscent of the realistic tactical shooter game, Bodycam, that I had played with my sister Fexa. The thought of being able to use my skills and knowledge from the game to my advantage on the airsoft field was exciting, and I could feel my confidence growing even further. I could already envision myself moving through the forest, using the cover provided by the trees and bushes to sneak up on my opponents and take them out with precision and stealth. I was ready to put my knowledge and skills to the test in the realistic and immersive environment. I was also looking forward to seeing how my fellow players would handle the challenging terrain and environment. Some of them may have had experience with the game Bodycam and could pose a serious but I was determined to come out on top no matter what. As I stood there getting ready for the game to start, I mentally prepared myself for what was about to come. I had my weapons ready, my gear on, and my mind set on victory. The countdown started and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. As the countdown ended and the round began, I watched as the other players quickly took off into the woods, running and dodging to find cover and a strategic position. I took a few deep breaths to calm myself and then followed suit, quickly moving forward into the dense foliage. I moved quietly and cautiously through the woods, making sure to stay low and use the trees and bushes as cover. I knew that most of the other players would likely head straight for the more open areas, so I wanted to take advantage of the element of surprise and sneak up on them from behind. I moved deeper into the woods, keeping my eyes and ears peeled for any signs of other players or threats. I could see a few players moving through the trees up ahead, but they were facing the other way and hadn't noticed me yet. I smiled to myself, loving the thrill of the hunt and the feeling of being in the zone. I quietly followed the players, moving silently through the bushes and trees, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As I continued to stalk my prey through the woods, I caught sight of a small group of players not too far away. I took aim with my rifle and fired a few shots, hitting them and causing them to put their hand up to signal that they had been hit and had to head back to the start to rejoin the game. The thrill of successfully taking down my opponents with my well-placed shots gave me an adrenaline rush, and I smiled to myself, feeling more confident and powerful with each victory. I continued to move through the woods, keeping an eye out for any more players to target. I knew that the woods provided a great environment to set up ambushes and catch opponents off guard, and I was determined to use this to my advantage as much as possible. As I continued my stealthy approach, I noticed a few more players moving through the trees ahead of me. I crouched down, making myself as small and inconspicuous as possible, waiting for them to get close enough for me to make a move. As the players moved closer, I held my breath and waited for the perfect moment to strike. Just as they passed by, I suddenly sprung up and fired a few shots, taking them down with ease. With that, I continued moving forward, feeling more and more confident with each successful hit. I was starting to feel like the Queen of the Woods, taking out players left and right with my precision aim and strategic moves. As I moved out of the woods and into the open field, I took in the sight of the tall grass and wheat surrounding me. It was an expansive area, and I knew that there could be players hiding in the grass or behind obstacles waiting to pounce. I cautiously moved forward, keeping an eye out for any signs of movement in the tall grass. I knew that it would be easy for players to hide and ambush me, so I stayed vigilant and ready to react at a moment's notice. As I continued to scan the field, suddenly a few players stood up in the tall grass and fired a few shots at me. I reacted quickly, ducking behind a nearby boulder for cover and returning fire. As the players stood up in the tall grass and fired a few shots at me, I quickly ducked behind a nearby boulder to take cover. I then peeked out from behind the rock and fired a few shots at them in return, successfully hitting them and getting the upper hand. With the other players down, I continued to move forward through the tall grass, staying low to the ground and making myself as small and inconspicuous as possible. I switched to a crouching position, making sure to move slow and steady as to not make a sound and give away my position. I continued to crawl and crouch walk through the field, listening intently for any signs of other players who may be nearby. I knew that the tall grass provided excellent cover, but it also made it harder to see, so I had to rely on my instincts and intuition to guide me. As I moved through the field, crouching and crawling, I took a moment to reload my weapons. I loved the sound of the tactical reload, the quick, efficient movement of my hands as I quickly swapped out the magazines and prepared for the next attack. With my weapons reloaded and ready to go, I continued to move forward through the field, feeling more confident and empowered with each step. The tall grass provided excellent cover and hiding spots, and I made sure to take advantage of it as much as possible. As I moved through the field reloading my weapons, I couldn't help but appreciate the satisfying sound it made. The clicking and clacking of the magazines and parts coming together was oddly satisfying, and it made me feel like a total badass, ready to take on anything that came my way. As I made my way out of the tall grass and back into the cover of the woods, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The cover of the trees and bushes provided me with more protection and concealment than the open field, and I felt more confident as I prepared to continue the hunt for my next victims. I moved quietly through the woods, staying low and using the cover of the trees as I moved deeper into the forest. I knew that the other players would likely be spread out and on the move, so I had to remain vigilant and ready for anything that might come my way. As I continued my stealthy journey through the woods, I took down player after player, feeling more and more powerful each time. I stayed quiet, using the cover of the trees to sneak up on my opponents and fire carefully aimed shots that took them down with ease. As the round continued, I racked up an impressive amount of points, taking down player after player and dominating the battlefield. I was in the zone, using my skills and intuition to make precise and strategic moves that left my opponents baffled and defeated. As I continued through the woods, stalking through the trees and bushes, I spotted several more players and quickly took them down, one after the other. I was in my element now, feeling like a true predator, as I stalked and ambushed my opponents with deadly precision. With each successful hit, my confidence grew and my excitement rose. I knew that I was dominating the game and that the other players were having a tough time keeping up. I was feeling unstoppable and determined to continue my assault on the battlefield till the end of the round. I continued to hunt and take down player after player, using every trick and tactic in the book to stay one step ahead of the competition. I was in the zone now, completely immersed in the game and feeling the adrenaline pumping through my veins as I continued my ruthless onslaught against my opponents. As the round came to an end, I looked at the score screen and could hardly contain my excitement when I saw my total score. 4,000 points, all due to my impressive kill streak and domination of the battlefield. It was a new personal best, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and satisfaction at my accomplishment. I knew that my aggressive and strategic playstyle had paid off, and I was eager to get back out there for the next round. I could practically feel the other players shaking in their boots as they realised that they would have to face me again in the next round. As I walked through the woods, I suddenly came across an old, rusted-up wood chipper that was likely left behind years ago. The sight of it gave me a bit of a shock, as it was a bizarre and unexpected thing to find in the middle of the woods. I couldn't help but feel a sense of curiosity as I moved closer to get a better look at it. As I walked closer to the wood chipper, the sight of it up close sent a shiver down my spine. Memories of grotesque scenes from movies and horror stories flooded my mind, images of people getting pulled in and shredded by the machine. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread and unease as I looked at the rusted up saw blades and the open mouth of the chipper. The thought of what could happen if someone got too close or slipped up and put a hand or foot too close to the blades was horrifying. As I stood there looking at the wood chipper, my body involuntarily trembled and shook with fear. I couldn't help but imagine all the terrible things that could happen if someone was careless or made a mistake around this dangerous and rusted up old machine. As the wave of fear washed over me, I couldn't help but remember my own nightmares and horror stories about getting pulled into a wood chipper. Despite knowing that my body was indestructible and that if I did happen to get pulled in, my limbs would just jam the blades and cause the machine to overheat, I still couldn't shake the feeling of terror at the sight of the rusted up chipper in front of me. Even though I knew that the wood chipper was old and rusted up and didn't work anymore, the sight of it still made me shiver with fear. I couldn't help but picture in my mind the scenes from movies and stories where people get pulled in and shredded by these machines, and the thought of even getting near it made my heart race in my chest. As the fear washed over me, I couldn't take it anymore and turned and ran away from the wood chipper. I didn't want to be anywhere near that rusty old machine and its dangerous mouth. The thought of what could happen if it somehow did start up was too much for me to handle. I kept running until I was a good distance away from it, my heart still racing and my body still shaking with fear. I knew that the chances of it suddenly coming to life and hurting me was slim, but the mere sight of it had left me deeply disturbed and shaken. After my encounter with the wood chipper, I continued on with the game, determined to put the fear behind me and focus on the task at hand. However, I knew that I had to report the location of the old and dangerous machine to the instructors, staff and hosts as soon as the round ended in 20 minutes. I continued moving through the woods, determined to finish the round strong despite my recent scare. I kept my senses heightened and my focus sharp as I moved through the trees, listening closely for any signs of other players or danger. As the round continued, I settled back into the zone and continued my kill streak, taking down enemy after enemy with ruthless efficiency. My fear from the wood chipper quickly faded as I focused on the game and the thrill of the hunt once more. I moved through the woods like a predator, stalking my prey and taking them down with well-aimed shots. My determination and focus were unwavering as I continued my dominant performance on the field, leaving a trail of defeated players in my wake. The sound of my weapons firing and the sight of players falling to the ground were like music to my ears. I was in my element, feeling powerful and unstoppable as I continued to assert my dominance on the battlefield. As I moved further through the woods, I suddenly came across an open area that looked to be an old abandoned hangout spot. There were small shacks, cabins, tents and other structures scattered throughout, giving the area a rustic and forgotten feel. I stopped for a moment to survey the area and couldn't help but wonder what this place was used for back in the day. As I moved through the abandoned hangout area, I kept my guard up and took down any players I encountered along the way. Despite the eerie and deserted atmosphere, I continued to stay focused and alert, using the cover provided by the shacks, cabins and tents to my advantage as I moved through the area. With every successful hit, I could feel my confidence and excitement growing. It was like I was on a mission, clearing out this abandoned area and leaving a trail of defeated players in my wake. The sound of my weapons firing and the sight of players falling to the ground gave me a sense of satisfaction and power. I was in my element, using every ounce of my skill and intuition to dominate the battlefield on this abandoned hangout spot. I continued my aggressive assault on the area, moving through the shacks and cabins like a stealth ninja, taking down players one after another with precision and efficiency. The thrill of the hunt was coursing through my veins, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and power as I continued my streak, taking down player after player without mercy. As I moved through the area, I felt like a true warrior, a dominant force to be reckoned with. Every hit, every shot, every successful takedown made me feel even more confident and energized, and I knew that I was completely in control of the situation. I moved stealthily through the different buildings, using the cover provided by the structures to take out enemies without being spotted. I was like a ghost, moving quietly and quickly, taking down adversaries and leaving them in my dust. As I continued my journey through the hangout area, I noticed a small trench that looked like it had been built by people who used to come here and do military reenactments. The sight of it gave me a sense of military-style coolness, and I couldn't help but imagine the epic battles that must have taken place in this area in its glory days. While moving through the area, I couldn't help but feel a sense of respect and awe for the people who had built this trench and used this area for their reenactments. It was clear that they had a deep passion for military history and tactics, and I was impressed by the dedication they had showed in building this makeshift battle site. As I entered the trench, I moved slowly and quietly, staying alert and ready to take out any players who might be hiding inside. I couldn't help but feel a sense of tension and excitement as I navigated the narrow passage, knowing that any moment an enemy could pop out from behind a corner and try to take me down. With every step I took, I scanned the area in front of me, looking for any signs of movement or enemy presence. The trench was a good place for players to hide and ambush, so I made sure to move carefully and tactfully, using every inch of cover to my advantage as I continued deeper into the passageway. After successfully taking out all the players in the trench, I took a moment to catch my breath and have a drink from my tactical canteen. I leaned back against the side of the trench, taking in a few deep breaths and letting the cool water refresh my body. The water tasted good and helped to calm my racing heart after the intense action I had just been through. I sat there for a moment, taking a few more sips of water and letting the sound of nature fill my ears. The quiet and stillness of the trench provided a nice break from the chaos and action of the battlefield, and I took a minute to collect my thoughts and prepare for the rest of the game. As I sat there, taking a moment to rest and regroup, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. I had survived the intense battle in the trench and come out on top, and I was feeling energized and ready to take on whatever else the game had to throw at me. As I sat there resting and taking a drink from my tactical canteen, my mind kept drifting back to the old rusted up wood chipper that I had seen earlier. Despite my current feeling of accomplishment and confidence, I couldn't shake the feeling of fear and unease that had washed over me when I saw it, and I couldn't help but wonder why it had affected me so deeply. I tried to push the thoughts of the wood chipper out of my mind and focus on the task at hand, but the image kept lingering in the back of my mind like a spectre looming over me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blades of the chipper turning and spinning, ready to consume anything that fell into its mouth. I felt a shiver run down my spine as flashbacks of the wood chipper flitted through my mind. I remembered the intake hopper that was so wide, the blades looked even more menacing and brutal than I had originally thought. There were 2 rows of blades, set up horizontally, 20 buzzsaw blades on each one. The sight was terrifying, and I could feel a sense of fear and unease deep in my gut as I remembered it. The mere thought of stumbling or falling and getting sucked into a wood chipper like the one I had seen, with its wide intake and rows of blades, sent a chill down my spine. It was a gruesome and horrific image, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread and terror at the thought of getting too close to such a dangerous and brutal machine. The thought of another player getting dangerously close to the old wood chipper and ending up with a limb stuck in it was a terrifying thought, even though the machine was rusted up and no longer worked. I couldn't help but imagine the horrific scene, a player getting their arm or leg stuck in the intake and being unable to get free without serious injury or even death. The idea that someone could get hurt or worse because of the old and broken wood chipper was almost too much to bear. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread and foreboding at the thought of someone encountering it and not realizing how dangerous it was, and potentially getting hurt as a result. As the thoughts and images of the wood chipper continued to run through my mind, my body began to shake involuntarily. I tried to shake it off and focus on the game, but the fear and dread that had taken hold of me was too strong. I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen, and my heart rate quickened as my body trembled with fear. The sudden alarm on my watch jerked me out of my daze. I looked at the time and saw that the game was over, and it was time to head back to the starting area. Relief washed over me as I realised that I could finally leave the chilling wood chipper behind and head back to safety. Even still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. With a mixture of relief and trepidation, I rose from my spot in the trench and headed back towards the starting area. Despite the fact that the round was over and I was no longer in danger, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease and fear as I replayed the images of the old and decrepit wood chipper in my mind. I made my way back through the woods, still feeling a sense of trepidation and anxiety after the encounter with the rusted up wood chipper. Despite the fact that the game was over and I was no longer in danger, the images of the dangerous machine continued to haunt me as I walked through the trees and bushes. As I continued walking through the woods, a sudden loud scream cut through the air, coming from the left of me. My heart skipped a beat as I froze in my tracks, my senses on high alert as I tried to figure out where the scream had come from and what could have caused it. Without hesitation, I took off running in the direction of the scream, my heart racing with adrenaline and fear. I had no idea what could be going on, but the sound of someone in distress was enough to trigger my protective instincts and send me running towards the source of the scream. As I sprinted through the trees and bushes, I kept my eyes and ears open, scanning the surroundings for any sign of the person who had screamed. I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was happening, and I needed to find out what was going on as soon as possible. As I reached the source of the scream, my heart dropped as I saw a player on the old wood chipper, their hands stuck in the rusted up blades. The sight was gruesome and horrifying, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My face paled as I took in the horrifying sight before me. The player's hand was trapped in the blades of the old wood chipper, and it was clear that they were in serious pain. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realised what was happening, and the reality of the situation sunk in. As I approached the player, I asked them what had happened. They explained that they had accidentally dropped their ring behind the blades of the old wood chipper and had tried to retrieve it, only to get their hands stuck in the blades in the process. It was a dangerous and foolish thing to do, but I could understand their desperation to get their precious ring back. I took a closer look at the blades and saw that they were rusted and old, but still sharp enough to cause serious injury if a hand or any other body part got stuck in them. I knew that every moment that passed, the player's hand was at risk of being seriously harmed or even amputated if it wasn't freed soon. With a mixture of fear and determination, I reached for the blades of the wood chipper, trying to find a way to reverse them and free the player's hand. The blades were cold and rusted, and I could feel the sharpness of them as I touched them. It was a dangerous and risky move, but I knew that I had to try to save the player's hand before it was too late. I could feel my heart racing as I touched the blades, terrified that I would get my own hand caught in them in the process. I could hear the player beside me begging for me to hurry and free their hand before it was too late. And I knew that every moment that passed was one moment closer to serious injury or even amputation for them. With a surge of strength and determination, I forcefully reversed the old and rusted blades of the wood chipper. It took all of my strength to move them even an inch, but eventually I was able to free the player's hand from the rusty grasp of the blades. The player let out a gasp of relief as their hand was freed from the grip of the wood chipper. I could see the pain and fear etched on their face, but there was also a sense of relief in their eyes as they realised that they had been saved from a potentially life-changing accident. As the player's hand was finally freed, I could see that it was all bloody and cut from being stuck in the blades of the wood chipper. It was a gruesome sight, and I could feel my stomach churning as I saw the extent of the injury. As I looked at the player's bloodied and cut hand, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The sight was sickening and disturbing, and I could feel my stomach churning as I tried to keep myself from throwing up. It was clear that the player was in a lot of pain and needed medical attention as soon as possible. Unable to hold it back anymore, I turned to my left and threw up as the full intensity of the situation hit me. The sight and smell of the player's bleeding and cut hand had triggered my gag reflex, and I couldn't. I stood there, reeling from the nausea and trying to regain my composure. I could feel the other player watching me, and I knew that they were probably confused and upset by my reaction. But I couldn't help it. The sight of their wounded hand was too much to handle. As I slowly began to recover from my nausea, the player asked me if I could grab their ring that was behind the blades of the wood chipper. I took a deep breath and steadied myself before nodding my head yes. I cautiously approached the blades of the wood chipper, my heart racing with fear and trepidation. I knew that I had to be careful not to get my own hand caught in the blades as I reached behind them to grab the player's ring. But I also knew that I had to do it quickly before the player lost too much blood from their wound. I took a deep breath and carefully pushed the blades of the wood chipper apart, trying to create enough space to reach behind them and grab the player's ring. It was a difficult and dangerous task, but I knew that it needed to be done. I could feel the blades scraping against my hand as I reached behind them, but I forced myself to push through the pain and keep going until I finally felt the cool metal of the ring in my fingers. With the ring safely in my hand, I breathed a sigh of relief. I couldn't believe that I had managed to get the ring without getting my own hand caught in the blades, but I also knew that there was a lot more work to be done before the player's injury would be taken care of. With the ring securely in my hand, I pulled my arm out from behind the blades and held it up to the player. The ring glinted in the sunlight as I handed it over, and I could see the relief in the players' eyes as they took it from me and slipped it back onto their finger. The player thanked me profusely for my help and for getting their ring free from the wood chipper, and I could see the pain and exhaustion etched on their face. It was clear that they were still hurt and needed medical attention, but at least they had their precious ring back. Once the player had their ring back and was somewhat calm, I helped them through the woods back to the starting area. The player was still in pain from their injury and needed my help to move, and I did my best to support them and make sure they didn't exert themselves too much on the way back. We moved slowly and carefully through the trees, stopping every few minutes so that the player could rest and catch their breath. I could see that they were in a lot of pain and were struggling to keep moving, but I knew that we needed to get them back to the starting area as soon as possible so that they could receive medical attention. After a long and painful journey through the woods, we finally made it back to the starting area where the game had begun. The player was clearly exhausted and in pain, and I could see that they were struggling to stand up straight. I helped them over to a nearby bench and sat them down, relieved that we had made it back in one piece. I could see other players around us, but nobody seemed to notice the player's injury or offer to help. I guess that they were all too busy or distracted by the game to notice. With the player safe and settled on the bench, I went over to a group of staff members who were standing nearby. I could see them all chatting and laughing, but I knew that I had to get their attention and tell them about the player's injury. As I approached, I cleared my throat to get their attention. They turned to look at me, and I explained the situation and pointed over to the player on the bench who was still holding their bloody and cut hand. The staff members quickly became alert and concerned once they saw the player's injury. They rushed over to the bench and gathered around the player, talking quietly amongst themselves as they examined the wound and discussed the best course of action. As the staff members hovered around the player, I told them about the old and busted up wood chipper that I had spotted in the woods. I described the scene and told them that the player had gotten their hands stuck in the blades when they had gone back to retrieve their ring. The staff members listened intently as I spoke, their expressions growing increasingly serious the more I explained. When I finished telling them about the situation, they exchanged a few words amongst themselves and nodded, clearly agreeing on a course of action. As the staff members finished talking amongst themselves, they turned to me and explained that they would contact the township and arrange for the old and busted up wood chipper to be removed from the woods and taken to the scrap yard where it belonged. I nodded in agreement, relieved that they were taking action and making sure that no one else would be injured by the dangerous wood chipper. I also felt a sense of relief that I had brought the issue to their attention and hopefully prevented any other players from being harmed by the old machine. The staff members thanked me for bringing the issue to their attention, and then they led the player who had been injured to the medical room so that they could receive proper medical care for their wound. I felt a sense of satisfaction that I had helped someone in need and that the dangerous old wood chipper would be taken care of. As I watched the staff members lead the player away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. I had done the right thing by bringing the old wood chipper to their attention, and I was glad that the player would now be able to get the help that they needed. After the player had been taken care of and the staff members had promised to remove the old wood chipper from the woods, it was time for the awards ceremony. I made my way to the awards stage with the other players, all of us excited and energised after our game adventure. As I took my place on the awards stage with the other players, I couldn't believe how fast the day had gone. It felt like only a moment ago I had been exploring the woods and encountering the old and dangerous wood chipper, and now here I was, waiting for the awards ceremony to begin. As the awards ceremony began, I stood on the stage with the other players while the staff members announced the winners of each category. When it was finally time for the first place winner to be announced, my heart leapt with excitement as I heard my name called out. I couldn't believe it. I had won first place. With a huge smile on my face, I walked up to the front of the stage to receive my gold trophy. The trophy was shaped like a miniature version of me, and I felt a huge sense of pride and accomplishment as I held it up for everyone to see. As the host continued the awards ceremony, they also mentioned how I had saved a fellow player from a life-threatening injury earlier in the day. The host praised my bravery and quick thinking in rescuing the player and preventing them from serious harm. They then surprised me by announcing that I would be awarded with a bonus prize of $4 million as a thank you for my heroic actions. I was completely shocked and overwhelmed when I heard the host announce the bonus prize. $4 million was a huge sum of money, and I couldn't believe that I was being awarded such a generous bonus for simply doing what was right. I felt both humbled and incredibly grateful for the recognition and reward. As the host finished announcing my bonus prize, they handed me the $4 million check. I held it in my trembling hands, feeling a mix of disbelief and shock at the size of it. $4 million was more money than I had ever seen in my life, and I couldn't believe that it was all mine. I clutched the check tightly in my hands, feeling a mix of excitement and disbelief as the host continued with the award ceremony. I knew that the money would change my life forever, and I could already imagine all of the things I could do with it. I couldn't wait to show my friends and family the check and tell them the incredible story of how I had won it. As I stood on the awards stage holding the $4 million check, I couldn't help but think of all the people in my life who I wanted to share this incredible prize with. I knew that my friends and family would be thrilled to hear about my win, and I felt a sense of excitement at the thought of being able to share my good fortune with them. I made a mental list of all the people I wanted to give money to, including my husband Broly, my sister Fexa, and our friends Fredina, Bonfi, Chiku, Golden Fredina, and Marie. With a sense of generosity and gratitude, I decided that I would split the money among my loved ones and friends, making sure that each of them received a fair share. I couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces when I told them about my win and distributed the money. After the award ceremony had come to an end, it was time to head home. The excitement of the day had left me feeling both tired and exhilarated, and I couldn't wait to get back to my house and share the news of my big win with my loved ones. As I made my way through the parking lot towards my car, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. I had won first place in the game, saved a fellow player from a dangerous injury, and received a $4 million check as a bonus prize. It had been an incredible day, and I couldn't wait to get home and celebrate with my family and friends. As I reached my car, I carefully placed my new gold trophy in the passenger seat, making sure it was secure and wouldn't move around during the drive home. I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride every time I saw the trophy, a reminder of my incredible victory and the bonus prize I had won. With my trophy safely placed in the car, I buckled my seatbelt and turned the key in the ignition, starting the engine and beginning the drive home. I couldn't wait to share my news with my loved ones and see the looks on their faces when I told them about my amazing day. As I drove home from the game area, I noticed a truck that was carrying the old and busted up wood chipper that I had spotted earlier in the day. It seemed like the staff had followed through on their promise to remove the dangerous machine from the woods and take it to the scrap yard where it belonged. Seeing the truck and knowing that the old wood chipper was being properly disposed of gave me a sense of relief. I was glad that no other players would be injured or hurt by the rusty old machine, and I felt proud that I had been the one to bring the issue to the attention of the staff. As I continued driving home, I felt satisfied knowing that the old and busted up wood chipper was now being taken care of and that no one else would be harmed by it. It was a small victory, but it was gratifying to know that I had made a difference and prevented further accidents or injuries. After a long and eventful day, I finally arrived home and pulled into my driveway. I turned off the car's engine and sat in the quiet car for a moment, feeling exhausted but exhilarated after the events of the day. As I entered my house through the front door, I was immediately hit with the smell of something delicious cooking in the kitchen. The aroma was mouth-watering and made my stomach grumble with hunger. As I stood in the hallway, I called out to Broly, my husband. "Broly, are you home? Whatever you're cooking smells amazing." I heard Broly's deep voice call back from the kitchen, confirming that it was in fact him cooking. "Yeah, it's me," he yelled. "I'm making a chili-covered cheese pizza. It's almost ready if you're hungry." Hearing that Broly was making my favourite meal, chili-covered cheese pizza, made my mouth water even more. Even though I was tired from the day, I couldn't wait to dig into a slice or two of the delicious pizza. I made my way towards the kitchen, my stomach rumbling with anticipation. As I stepped into the kitchen, I saw Broly at the stove, carefully ladling chili onto a large pizza that was already covered in melted cheese. I couldn't help but smile as I saw Broly at the stove, looking focused and happy as he added the last touches to the pizza. He looked up and saw me standing in the kitchen, and his face lit up with happiness. He greeted me with a warm smile and said, "Hey, there you are! I was wondering when you would make it home. The pizza's almost ready. You must be hungry after your long day." I nodded, my stomach growling in response. "I'm starving," I said, walking over to him and giving him a quick hug. "The pizza smells amazing. I can't wait to dig in." After I gave Broly a quick hug, I leaned in and gave him a quick kiss on the lips. He smiled and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close and returning the kiss. As we stood in the kitchen, embracing each other and enjoying a sweet moment, I couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness and contentment. It was nice to be home, and I knew that the pizza and spending time with Broly would make the end of my day even better. After our sweet moment in the kitchen, Broly and I went into the dining room, where we sat down to enjoy our meal. Broly had put on some soothing, romantic jazz music that filled the room with a calm and relaxing atmosphere. As we ate our chili-covered cheese pizza, the music played softly in the background. The pizza was delicious, and the combination of the spicy chili and melted cheese was perfect. The music added to the romantic atmosphere, and I found myself feeling more and more relaxed and happy as we enjoyed our meal together. As we finished eating our pizza, I leaned back in my chair, feeling pleasantly full and satisfied. The music continued to play in the background, creating a peaceful and comfortable atmosphere. We sat in silence for a few moments, simply enjoying each other's company and the aftermath of a delicious meal. As we finished our meal and the music faded into the background, Broly and I looked at each other, our eyes meeting in a knowing and passionate way. Without a word, we leaned in and kissed, our mouths meeting in a passionate and intimate dance. As our kiss deepened, I felt a familiar heat and desire begin to build in my belly. I knew that Broly was feeling it too, and I could feel his strong hands begin to caress my body, as if he already couldn't wait to get me alone in the bedroom. After a few more moments of kissing, Broly and I reluctantly pulled away from each other. We both knew that it was time to get ready for bed, even though we were both still feeling the heat and desire that had built up between us. Once we were both ready for bed, Broly and I climbed into bed, slipping under the covers and making ourselves comfortable. I snuggled close to Broly, enjoying the feeling of his warm body against mine. As we lay in our bed, the room was quiet and peaceful. The only sound was the soft sound of our breathing as we lay together, both of us relaxing after a long and eventful day. As we lay in bed together, enjoying the comfort and warmth of each other's presence, we shared one last kiss before drifting off to sleep. The soft sounds of our breathing filled the room, and I felt completely safe and content in Broly's arms. As I closed my eyes and let myself drift off to sleep, I couldn't help but feel grateful and happy. I was surrounded by the warmth of Broly's body and the love that we shared. The day had been long and tiring, but lying here in bed with him made it all feel worth it.